How do Daddy smack plastering?
So, skimming this small utility room, and I did do the full video on this, every single step right through with no voiceover. I have been asked to do a voiceover and explain certain stages. So obviously this is stage 1. Plasterboarding's all been completed. All the ceiling's been boarded. Walls are dabbed here. So a bit of a mess. It will need cleaned up. Very important, guys, to have a clean work area before you start. So really preparation to be done here. Some preparation has been done while the boards were dabbed, such as there was a conduit there and it was already filled in with compound, and similar wee gap along the top, just pre-filled it with compound. But as you can see, I need to clean up. Still a bit of prep before we start skimming. Mostly everything is plasterboard, which does help, but you can see down this joint here, it is some exposed block, so I'm going to want to satin cement render that ready, devil float it, ready for skim. But really going to need to get this area clear first. Also, this floor will be getting screeded up level to the existing floor. So as you can see, quite a bit of a step, but again, I like to leave any screeding work to the very end, and have all these electrics taped up here so that anything falls down into them won't cause any problems. Again, would be better to switch off all the electric, guys, and make sure it's safe for you before getting any wet plaster down in. Concrete head along the top there, and as you know, I always say get the dust off, guys. That's why I'm showing you the brush across it. But that concrete head will need some either SBR or PVA painted onto it just before we actually start throwing on satin cement, and the scrim taping will happen after that. Then I'll show you that again once I'm on that stage. So just mixing up the satin cement. This mix was either a 3-to-1 or a 4-to-1, probably 4-to-1, as it's just a one coat for skim coat after. I do have videos on that as well, guys. If you're new and you'll be seeing this channel for the first time, there is plenty of videos on how to satin cement walls ready for skim, and just even outside work, exterior plastering. So obviously I don't need much, so I'm just mixing it in an old bucket with the refined mega mixer. No need to pull out the belly mixer and make a big mess out the back. Just crack away with the drill. And you can also see the PVA there that I've used sitting beside me. You might want your satin cement a little bit stiffer than what I have done here. I might tighten this up a wee bit before I start. It's not actually a heavy coat I'm doing, but if you are doing something heavier, you may want to just stiffen it up a bit by just adding the same ratios of ingredients that you're going for, whether it's 4-to-1 or 3-to-1. So now that I have it mixed and I'm happy, just gonna start coating. And some people want to start on the opposite sides than me, that's okay, but the main thing is to get it on and make sure there's no trapped air behind. And hopefully you've done all your preparation right by wetting down bricks. You can see I've wet down the right hand side, and I would have PVA'd this concrete head previous throwing the satin cement on as well. You can actually see a couple of conduits there just covered. But the reason I picked satin cement here is I sort of wanted it to be solid, and I could have bonded this. I don't think there's much risk of damp there. Also could have used hard wall, the next browning, anything like that could have been used as well. But again, satin cement to me, I have it, so I'm happy enough to use it, and it gives me a chance to show you guys just a small amount of satin cement preparation to skim it. So basically the idea here is to get it all well pushed in and then straighten it up, and then we'll finish it off ready for skim, which I call devil floating. And I'll show you just a couple of other things, how to keep the corners nice and neat for skimming. Believe it or not, sand cement's one of them things that if you don't clean it off, it'll be rock hard the next day. But if you purposely didn't clean it off, it would be very soft the next day. It's just one of them things that seems to do the opposite of what you want sometimes. So, but you're always better to clean off them angles. I'll show you that up close. Get a nice bit of detail on it. But basically, get your whole wall coated. And I always sort of, if I do drop stuff, I always pick it up again. But I think I've more than enough in this bucket to do this track. And the beauty about what I'm doing here is because I'm just patching it up, I still have the reveals in the inside and actually the edge of them as well, so I'm able to use them as my rule, and that's the amount I need to fill out to. So it's I made it easy for myself. I could have went ahead and chipped all that off, but it wasn't boast and it was very, very solid, so there's no point giving yourself extra work. If it doesn't need to come off, you can go over it, it's no problems. If I was patching this, I would have to cut back my sand cement around the edge to leave room for the skim coat to fall into, but the plan is to reskim the whole lot so I can come out flush, which to me makes it easier again, and then I can fit beads and reskim the whole lot. So making life easy, because plastering's hard enough as it is definitely the way to go, guys. You may also notice that the sockets are up high, and that's because there will be a countertop being fitted there, so obviously they're countertop sockets, just in case anybody's wondering why there's so many switches up high. So that's the reason. But yeah, once all your sand cement's on, it'll be time to straighten it up. You can straighten sand cement straight away as soon as you get it on, or you can let it pull out a little bit, but I do prefer as soon as I get mine on, especially on a wee bit, I will straighten it literally instantly. And again, the beauty about this is you could almost straighten this whole thing with just a trowel because I'm working off the original, but I would recommend checking your angles with a level or a big straight edge, a 6 foot straight edge, and potentially checking along the top angle just to make sure it's straight, because if you do have any hooks in the corners, your skim coat's going to follow that. As you must remember, your skim coat's only about 3mm thick, so it's going to follow whatever your preparation is, so that's why preparation for plastering is vital. So I always give my tools a wee scrape in between things to try and make it easier for washing. Sand cement doesn't set as quick as finish or bonding unless it's outside in the sun. It will set very quickly to your trowels then. So as promised, guys, straight edging part, and as you can see, I'm working off the original there, pulling up just as if I would if it was a rule, and same along the top, just using a small level for it, which fits in good for up and down. So obviously if these beads needed bonded out or stuck on heavy, you could maybe do that first and work your sand cement out a wee bit more, but I prefer just to stick the beads on later on and fill out the end if I need to. So it wasn't actually that hard to straighten at all. Again, like I say, do try and check it with something full length, and that'll give you a better indication of how straight that angle really is. And you notice as well where I'm standing, so I can look at it and see if there's any voids. Again, them videos are on the channel, really detailed, if you're interested in finding out about sand cement and walls and then skimming them. They're there. So now that you have any hollows, you can fill them out. Just a wee tiny one up here. Again, something so small, you could sort of go nice and heavy, nice and fat on it, and cut it all back then, so you're not really having to fill. Personally, I do like to build out gradually, other than trying to do it all in one. One subscriber was telling me that they kind of agree with that method now, as they were straightening the wall before and it was a bit heavy and it all just slumped down on them. and literally at the same time the customer walked in and asked them, "Does that usually happen?" So he was a wee bit embarrassed. He did rectify it. Thing about plastering, guys, if you're brave enough to make mistakes, then you're gonna do well, because if you don't make mistakes, you're not gonna learn. So you're gonna learn from your mistakes. Not that what he was doing was a mistake. It's just sometimes when you go too heavy with satin cement, it can fall out because it's wet and it's heavy. So again, why stiffer might be better if something's heavy. But yeah, back to the point is that if it falls out, guys, it's okay. Push it back in, put it in a wee bit lighter, let it tighten up, and put another wee coat over it. That's kind of the sort of methods I prefer when I'm straightening up. I prefer to try and get it all on perfect, and then when I cut it, right, okay, I've missed here, here, and here, fill out, cut back again. But you can see that I'm really trying to put a bit of detail into the angles. And the reason for that is plastering around your beads, your angles, round sockets, round the skirting. These are all things that are going to show it off for being bad. And when it is taken up now is the time for the float. So this is important, guys. Don't think you can skip this part. This is going to help your skim coat grip in. Now I know a load of companies don't stand over satin cement anymore, as they want you to use their product for the undercoat and not the cheap satin cement version. But I've never had any issues with my satin cement, so you know. Again, hard wall, great. Yes, this preferably would have been better in hard wall because I could skim it the same day. But I got time, so I don't need to panic. And again, if you're here watching this, chances are you're a beginner or you're still picking up on the trade. So that's the beauty of it. And this is what I'm talking about, the wee trick, guys, is to make sure you clean these corners after you float. Very, very important. As you can see, I've gone over it a couple of times. What you're doing there is you're scraping off any excess off the ceiling, and then when you come this way, you're also dropping it down off the ceiling. You're cutting it, and you're if you did cut in really deep into your render, when you go back along the render, you're actually cleaning it up again. You're pushing it back in flat. So it doesn't really matter what way you do it. You can do it a couple of different ways, but I find just striking the trowel up and down cleans them corners lovely for skin. And again, even though I'm cleaned this probably before I scrim tape, I could possibly run my trowel down it again the next day or two, just to make sure. But you definitely do want to have this clean now, because it does tend to get really solid before you do skim. So this will be part 2, guys, showing you me bonding and skimming the ceiling, and I'll talk a wee bit more about why I bond and skim things, and basically the most important thing between bonding and skim is timing. What I look for before I start my mix of skim, and try and help you out on them timings there.
Subscribe to Daddy